He-Man is here, and I have a bone to pick with Mattel. Let's see if I end up being passive about it or not. But this doll was released to Mattel constituents for the low price of $80. But if you patiently waited, you could have got it on Amazon for $56. Thanks a lot, Mattel. Okay, so the way it worked was, even though it was supposed to be a collab between Masters of the Universe, Motu fans, and Barbie, if you had a Barbie membership, you were forced to pay a $10 Motu membership fee. And that brought up the price from $60 to $70. And on top of that, they have an $8 shipping fee. That is $78, and then there's tax, you're at $81. My second bone is, like I said, if you bought it on Amazon, it's $55.99, $56. Yeah, that's $4 less than getting it direct from Mattel. I guess I forgot to learn my lesson, because I thought this was going to be exclusive to Mattel with the way they were putting it out there. But it was not. So again, get it on Amazon. It's available now. So let's check him out. Here's his little close-up. They used faux leather for his skirt, and I believe his boots are plastic, a very light rubbery plastic. And here's the back of the box with the actor on it. It says, in a desperate bid to keep him safe from danger, 10-year-old Prince Adam is transported through a portal to Earth, where he is accidentally separated from his magical power sword, the only link to his home on Eternia. After tracking it down almost 2 decades later, Prince Adam is whisked back through space to defend his home planet against the evil forces of Skeletor. However, before he can defeat such a powerful villain and his formidable army, Prince Adam will need to uncover the mysteries of his past and become He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. So basically, it's like a reverse isekai. And if you're not an anime watcher, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But an isekai is an anime in which somebody, usually they die, and then they end up reincarnated or transferred to a fantasy world. And it doesn't always mean death, but they do disappear from one world and they get transferred over to a fantasy world, in which they are brought there to be the heroes of that world and are usually given these fantastic, incredible powers. I love a good isekai, okay? But I hate it in this case. Right now, I will tell you why. Because in our culture, our westernized society, there is no way they're going to pull us from one world to another world and tell us to save their world. The way that Westerners are, we are not willing to give of ourselves to save a nation. I believe that kind of nationalism and giving of oneself is something that has been long dead in the United States. That's why it's more of a popular concept over in Eastern countries like Japan with their particular style of culture. So that's one of the reasons I'm not fond of it. I've also heard that he was like an office worker. I feel like it would have been great if it was a little bit more campy, in the sense that even though he was living in this dimension, that he was always a prince. Like, he could have been bodybuilding, but in royalty, or WWE wrestler prince, or, he worked as a used car salesman and they called him the Prince of Car Sales, or he tried to enter real estate and he ended up being like the Prince of Real Estate. I think that would have been more amusing, because it's really weird for somebody who works in an office to just be this bodybuilder. Even though, to be quite honest, one of my past co-workers who worked in the office, he was a massive bodybuilder like guy. So it's not completely impossible. but he was definitely not some sort of pushover. My other beef with the movie is I'm old, okay? I used to watch Saturday morning cartoons, so my vision of He-Man is not this Bishonen boy. Again, I'm going back to my anime. Bishonen basically means young, pretty boy. His name is He-Man. This means super masculinity, and you think of a really square jaw, and I kind of feel like this guy is a little bit of a pretty boy. If you don't know, I have my own little fanfic series ever since the She-Ra doll came out, and I'm going to tell you more about that, and I'm going to do a little rundown or overview of the story at the end of this video, so stay tuned. But until then, I'm going to be doing some comparisons and talk about my other feelings on this doll. In person, the doll actually looks a little bit more strong-jawed than he appears in the trailers. And so you know, I did not get Teela. I didn't get her because she looks kind of like a very average looking woman. No offense to her. And I also don't like the outfit they chose for her. That's sort of a modern superhero. And it does not remind me of the way she was usually represented in the cartoons, in the barbarian clothes. Also, for the doll's marketing pics, she looks like she's wearing a wig. And her hair is rooted. I don't know who is doing the staging for the marketing for the dolls now, because they don't know how to properly fix them up to look good anymore. They used to do these marketing pics with the dolls where the dolls look pretty darn awesome. It's like, and then you get them and you're like, their hair completely doesn't look like that. And now it's like taking the exact opposite extreme. The other thing I don't like about the Teela doll is that they say she's sporting the superhero body, which is going to be like this Wonder Woman doll. And I actually have several superhero dolls, and it's not my favorite body. Let me just quickly interrupt to show the background of his box is Castle Grayskull with a bridge and some men raising their swords closer to the foreground. The stand is your traditional waistband clip stand that you know I'm not going to keep. And now, back to my complaints about Teela. I brought a couple of dolls, Wonder Woman, the recent Wonder Woman, and Mystique, who will be appearing in an upcoming episode of She-Ra. They both have the superhero body. Wonder Woman's is the body I figured it was going to be because it just makes more sense, since I believe Teela and her are about the same skin color. And if you're going to be manufacturing one hero doll, why not double up on the bodies to reduce the price and have both of the bodies manufactured at the same time? So Annie, if you don't know who she is, go check out her channel. She asked me in the comments for my Wonder Woman short what I meant by the rubber band connection. On this particular superhero doll, when you open her up, you see how her leg comes away from her body? Because she has like a very thick rubber band in there. And that's what I meant, that I don't care for that body type. Because even though that band is pretty sturdy, after a while it does loosen up over time. And I prefer when it's a ball joint. As I mentioned, He-Man's boots are like a soft, rubbery plastic. It kind of reminds me of the material on Superman's boots, the newer Superman. So they're not really too stiff or thick. They have a lot of nice detailing, like with the straps and the buckles, that I really appreciate. He has a hint of metallic on his belt buckle, and there's Velcro in the back of his skirt. His armor piece has a bit of the metallic and sort of a matte metallic going on, which I appreciate. It's more of a rubber for his chest plate, and there's do you see the little clips? I believe if you detach those, It's the way that you will be able to get his chest plate off. His hair obviously is heavily gelled, and that's fine to me. I'm going to compare him to some other muscular bodies. I was going to compare him to a lot more bodies, but I've already done all the measurements, and I know that all these bodies, no matter what I originally thought, measure out the exact same breadth from shoulder to shoulder. But some of them visually just appear to be larger. You can see that his sword just slides into the back of his chest plate, though I'm not sure why there's this slight opening on one end of the sheath. So after you detach the little button snappy things and pull it around his head, it's still a little tight and you can mess up his hair a little bit. So I'm going to be comparing him to Ken Looks number 25, the muscular black made-to-move Ken. And right off the bat, you can see that the made-to-move Ken has a chest pivot and He-Man does not. So at certain angles and when the light hits it a certain way, it almost appears as if some of the Kens are slightly broader. But I've literally used a measuring tape and they are all the same from shoulder to shoulder and from side flank to side flank, the same measurements. When I compare, say, the Superman body or Batman's body. Oh, and for the Superman, I have done a review for him, and I will link that review somewhere up here. I have not reviewed this Batman yet. So also, I wanted to clarify to you all, just in case some people don't know the difference between the hero body and a typical made-to-move body. A typical made-to-move body, including the muscular one, has the chest pivot, which He-Man does not have the chest pivot. The made-to-move also has this arm turn joint at the upper arm, which the hero body also has, just like the made-to-move. But when you lift up He-Man's skirt, you can see his thigh muscles very clearly. Very nice, but no turning joint like the made-to-move, where you can twist his upper thigh leg. Also, he can splay his legs, but not as much as a made-to-move doll. So you're not going to get as many positions with this hero body as you could get with a traditional, I keep saying traditional, typical made-to-move body. Also, for this doll, I'm really glad that he only has one closed fist and then one semi-closed hand to hold on to his sword, because like my Superman, he has two closed fists. The muscular made-to-move has two sort of cupped hands, similar to He-Man's right hand. Batman also has one fist and one cupped hand. But if you don't like this particular hand or the fist, you could heat up his hands and swap his fist if you really wanted to, just using a regular Ken doll. You know, one of the Barbie made-to-move Ken hands that are completely open-palmed. I need to interject really quickly. There are two different types of hands. The ones with the pegs and the one where the base wraps around the built-in stem. This can vary based on where Mattel has that body made. So if you soak the wrist and hand for 30 seconds and you still feel a lot of resistance, I recommend trying a different doll. No reason to ruin the whole doll for the sake of a hand. As a Barbie collector, I recommend that you collect this Ken. What you have here is a unique male sculpt. He has decent hands, and he has a pretty much made to move body with a skin tone that is the closest you're going to get to most of the what I call redneck white Kens, which is majority of the Kens outside of Ken number 5. So even if you're not a fan of He-Man, just to have this body or have a unique sculpt will be the biggest reasons to buy him. Will I personally be swapping him out to be the new He-Man for my fanfic? Well, let's check out who I'm currently using. Introducing my current He-Man that I'm using for my fanfic. Currently he is dressed as Lord Adam, but I have made him clothes to look more like a barbarian. There should be a tag somewhere over here that will show you what his He-Man attire looks like that I custom made for him. He is currently using the Integrity Ace McFly doll sculpt, and he's on a knockoff JHD body. Let me pull out a spare one that I got from AliExpress. Here we go. So that we can truly compare. If you look at this body, do you see how much definition that he has? I believe He-Man has a lot of good detail on his body and his legs too. But because this body is so much taller and broader across the chest, he just looks more muscular and stronger. It is more difficult to find clothes to dress these JHD bodies in. And so I have to do a lot of customization and, looking around for the right clothes for him to wear. But because I have a number of JHD dolls, I have about 9 or 8 actual JHD dolls and 2 knockoffs. And I have a bunch of these spare bodies that I trade in and out with Ken heads. So it just encourages me to acquire more clothes for this style of male doll. And as you can see, he's only very, very slightly taller than an Integrity doll. So yes, I'm going to keep my current He-Man as he is. I mean, it would be weird to trade him out at this point anyway. But the new He-Man may star in one of my fanfic series as somebody else. If I keep going with it because, it doesn't get very much traction. I think, one, because I have it labeled as She-Ra, and the guys think She-Ra is for girls, and He-Man is for boys. And this is not really specific to one or the other. I just labeled it She-Ra because she was the first one of the set. But the story is about both of them. I am going to show you an overview of my series and snippets that have been bound together to show where the story is at this point at the end of this. So in conclusion, I'm personally upset about the price I paid. And I'm going to see if I can get a credit or something for at least the membership. To me, the membership's only worth it if they have another collab and they put out a Skeletor version of this 12-inch doll. And not that Monster High collab. I personally felt it kind of looked like a bobblehead. I was not a fan. I mean, bright face, tiny little neck, and big red reptilian eyes. And also the clothing, none of it really connected for me. Though some people liked it. But ultimately, I know other doll collectors, other Barbie collectors are looking for a decent, articulated body. And this one pretty much fits a lot of clothes. He's a lot easier to dress than, say, the JHD doll. So if you are looking for a good swappable body, I think that this doll is at a good price. He's the right skin color for you to buy, if just for his body. And if you're into unique sculpts, I also think he's a great unique sculpt. Oh, and if you wanted to get a closer look at the leather skirt, he does have little leather up panties underneath them. It's all attached. But I think he's pretty cool. And now for an overview of my She-Ra series.
The Adventures of She-Ra starts out with a discovery. The discovery of a black She-Ra. By word of mouth, the king of Crystal Caves, King Crystal, has heard that She-Ra has been captured, and that potentially She-Ra is also Adora, the woman he has recently been offered a betrothal for. His friend, Prince Adam's twin sister, Princess of Castle Grayskull. He gathers his men and proceeds to fight off the remaining horde to acquiesce She-Ra's whereabouts. Upon wandering through a dungeon, he comes across a warrior. Unsure if she is She-Ra, they launch into a battle. She uses a mysterious power and transforms into Black She-Ra. Before he could wrap his mind around that, another She-Ra appears, unbound from her confines. She thenceforth threatens to fight him. Stunned by the situation, King Crystal does not respond, but only watches as the two She-Ras flee the dungeon and take off on a magical flying white horse, a sight in which King Crystal has never seen in Eternia. Realizing she'd been away too long, Princess Adora heads toward Castle Grayskull to meet up with her brother. But who to play Prince Adam and He-Man? An integrity doll was chosen, rebodied, and dressed to play the part of our barbarian hero. What's more, a villain was needed to play the part of our devious and deceptive Skeletor, who proceeds to tell his own backstory of how he found himself in the dimension of Eternia under the leadership of Hordak. And surprising, Skeletor is no mere demon, but once was a man. Disturbing as that may be, no one was more disturbed as Adora, who was finding out from Adam that she had been betrothed to King Crystal, the strange swordsman who just confronted her in Hordak's dungeon. Why was he even there? Prince Adam will shortly find out, but not before a little Christmas special. Who invites their enemy to Christmas dinner? Time for a bizarre Christmas dinner at Castle Grayskull. Peace and goodwill to one and all, I suppose. Soon we're back to business, and it's time for Adam to confront King Crystal, man to man, over a little game of King's Pass. But it's difficult to truly get any clarity with the strange visitor in tow. The conversation is quickly changed to this covered man who declares he is the great prophet who disappeared years ago. Adora doesn't care for all the pretense, but is quickly admonished. Frustrated by her new role and behavioral expectations cast on women of Eternia, she insists on returning to Etheria, where after much time, we again run into Black She-Ra. But alas, in Etheria, she is not just Black She-Ra, but Queen Teela of the Dark Elves. And Adora here is known as Lady Rabbit. She is Queen Teela's advisor. Things do not quiet down, though, as King Crystal and Prince Adam find the still open portal, and Prince Adora is missing. A fight ensues that Queen Teela quashes with her power, and that's where the story lays. What will happen now that King Crystal and Prince Adam have discovered part of Adora's secret life? What more will Adora reveal? All this and more next time.
Anyone wanna play with me? If you like that video, you should consider watching one of these. Watch this one. But no. You're not doing anything better. You know you're not. Oh, and like it and subscribe.